In this session, I'm going to introduce you to two different online services. They are completely free to use, and these are the services I used to get the elements for the previous video where I create the tomb. This is Thingiverse.com. This is the first of two. It is a free database that you can find online. And basically, it's just a large library of 3D models that people have created and uploaded for others to use. Most everything on Thingiverse you can download for free. There are some rules, and I'll show you that in just a second. But basically, if you can think of something you want to 3D print or use in some of your game terrain or game projects, it all starts here with the search window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for Elf Knight. And the reason I'm doing that is I know exactly what I'm looking for, but you could search for robot, you could search for shield, elf, dwarf, whatever you want. You may get lucky and find a lot of things, you may not find much. But Thingiverse is growing and people are adding things all the time, and usually I can often find something that I need. So I'm going to type in Elf Knight and I'm going to hit enter. And you can see it's providing me some thumbnails of these various miniatures that people have uploaded. This is the one I want right here. So I'm going to click on it and it opens up in a larger view. And I can see this is a pretty cool looking little model. I wouldn't mind having that on top of the tomb. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to see the back of it and the sides first, because I am going to cut this in half and lay it flat so it becomes the top cover for the tomb. To do that, to see all around an object, you click this little blue thumbnail right here. Now, not all files are going to have this, but most do. So I click it and it changes to this view. You can see the model change to this blue color. Click Thingiverse, and what this does is it's going to allow you to use your mouse or touchpad to rotate and look at the object from all angles. You can look from underneath, from top, you can zoom in, see the detail. So I know I like this one. This is the one I want. And before I download it, I want to show you a few things. First off, I mentioned that most every model you download, you can use it for free, but there are some rules related to how you can use it. For example, this one is made by a guy or a girl, I'm not sure, called Maker Slab CZ. And I want to know what the rules are for this. And I can come down here and I can see that the license is all these funny symbols, non-commercial. If I click any of these, it will give me a little more explanation. So I can share this and I can adapt it. I can transform it, remix it, build upon the material. But if I look down here, I'm not allowed to use it for commercial use. You may not use this material for commercial purposes. Now, this video is not monetized, so I'm not worried about that, and I'm not going to be selling this tomb. It's for my own personal use. They are asking for attribution, so I'm going to do that. In the description for this video, I will include a link to that person who created this model. And then, of course, share alike. If you remix, transform, or build upon, you must distribute your contributions under the same license. So if I make any changes to this particular model and I upload it to Thingiverse, I have to make these attributes the same. And of course, I have to tell where the original came from. But these are typical rules that, you know, most of us who 3D print, we know these rules and we abide by them. It's just part of being in the Thingiverse community. So I'm going to go back to my Elf Knight, and I'm going to show you this. Thing files right here. This is the button you want to click to begin downloading. Now, before you download, you need to verify a few things. First, you want to make sure you're downloading an STL file. STL stands for stereo lithography. It's basically a fancy word meaning a 3D printed object. The other application I'm going to show you in this video is called Tinkercad, and Tinkercad can only import two file types, STL and SVG. SVG is typically a two-dimensional image file. STL is a 3D type image. So you want to make sure you're downloading an STL file. And the other thing is Tinkercad can only import a file no larger than 25 megabytes. So this is only 3 megabytes, so it's going to be not a problem. Some of these 3D objects that you may want to download, they could be much larger than 25 megs. If that's the case, you cannot import them into Tinkercad. You'll have to find another way to get them into a piece of software that you can do some manipulation. Or you can use some software to break that file into parts and then import them, 2 or 3 at a time. As long as they're below 25 megs, Tinkercad will let you keep importing files and files. Now, the bigger the file, you'll see Tinkercad, can get a little sluggish when you're using very, very large files. But for this one, 3 megabytes, it's not going to be a problem. So when you've identified the file that you want to download, it's real simple. You just click on the file, and you're going to get a dialog box asking you to save the file to your own computer. And I will do that. I'm going to say, okay, it's downloaded the file. And now I am ready to go to the other service called Tinkercad.com and do some manipulation. So after you have downloaded an STL file from Thingiverse.com, you're going to want to point your web browser to a website called Tinkercad.com, Tinkercad, Tinkercad.com. Tinkercad is a free online CAD application. If you don't know what CAD is, it stands for Computer Aided Design. It's a real fancy word for basically meaning the computer or the software is going to aid you or assist you in creating a 3D model or 3D objects. For example, it's very hard for me to draw a perfect circle, but Tinkercad and other CAD applications, I can draw a circle or a sphere, and all it's looking for me is to define the radius and diameter. It will handle creating that shape or object on the screen, and it'll make it perfect every time. Now, what you're looking at here is the basic Tinkercad work plane. You can even see it says work plane right here. This is where you create 3D models. Now, I should tell you that Tinkercad has a learning curve, not a steep one, but you do have to spend some time learning the various tools. And there you can see there's not a lot of buttons and things. I mean, it's not a super fancy, super powerful CAD application. Tinkercad is owned by a company called Autodesk, and Autodesk does have some very advanced or more advanced CAD applications such as Fusion 360 or AutoCAD. And some of those are free, some of those cost money, but Tinkercad is free, and it's where I recommend a lot of beginners who want to learn CAD and start making 3D models. This is where you really need to begin. So after you go to Tinkercad.com, you're going to have to create an account. Again, it just needs your email address and a few bits of information. And it will save all of your 3D models in sort of a library for you. And you can click the Create New Design button, and it will bring you here to the work plane where you're going to use basic shapes over here and some of the tools to create your 3D models. In this video, I am not going to be able to show you every button and explain every tool and feature. You're just going to have to dive in and learn it. But what my goal here is to show you how I made the components and 3D printed them to make the tomb in the previous video. So what I want to do here is just get started showing you how I created the top cover and the embellishments for that tomb. To create the tomb that you saw in the previous video, I need to 3D print some objects that will be glued to the cardboard box that makes up the tomb. One of those is obviously the elf knight figure that I downloaded from Thingiverse earlier in this video, but I'm also going to custom create some little details that will be glued on the sides of the tomb. Now, if you'll remember, my tomb consists of a cardboard box with a lid. I am actually going to flip that upside down so the lid becomes the base of the tomb, and the bottom of the cardboard box is going to become the top. And that's where this plastic lid, I'm going to print this piece in plastic, is going to be glued down on top of this. So let me go ahead, before I do the details on the side, let me go ahead and create the lid. I'm going to click this import button. I'm going to click choose file, and here is the elf figure that I downloaded. I click open, and then I need to click import. Down here it'll tell me that it's actually importing the elf knight STL file. If it were a big file, 20 to 25 megs, that could take a minute or more, but this is a small file, so it really shouldn't take that long. As a matter of fact, there it is. I can click and hold on that figure and just move it around the work plane here. I'm going to put it right here and then rotate around so you can see that it is a true 3D figure. I don't like that color. I'm going to click here to change the color. And the color has nothing to do with the 3D printing phase. I will choose the color filament I want, or plastic that I want to print it in, but I'm going to make yellow just so it's a little easier to see the details. Alright, so looking at this, there's a lot of things I need to do here. One, I need to rotate it so that it's lying, down, but I also need to cut it in half. I don't need this back half protruding beneath the lid. I just need half of it. I also need to remove this base that it's standing on right here. So here's how you remove material in Tinkercad. Now I'm going to take a box here. I'm going to click and hold and drag a new box on here. Now if you're wondering where I got these two objects, this is it. I dragged a box on, and you see these little white squares in the corners? If you click and hold those, they'll let you resize the box as you move your mouse around. The ones on the sides do height, length and width, and the one right here on top controls the height. You can shrink it down, you can make it tall. I'm going to make this one taller than my figure, and there is a hole button right here. See this one? I click hole, and notice that this box becomes transparent. It's like negative space. So if you have a solid object and a negative space object, or a hole object, and you merge them like this, okay, I just want to visually look at this and make sure it's what I like. Look, that side looks good, floated around here, that side looks good. So here's how you combine those objects. I click on the box or the whole object, I click on the solid object, and then I click this button right here called group, and watch what's going to happen. It's going to chop cleanly the back of the miniature off. See that? Now, to remove this little base, I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to add a box. I'm going to use this top one to shrink the height down a little bit. I'm going to turn it into a negative space or hole object. I'm going to drag it under my figure. And then all I need to do is use that same square box to increase the height and raise it up until it touches the feet. That looks good right there. And I'm just going to float around and just make sure that it's covering the base. It looks good. So again, I hold the shift key down, I click the negative space, I click the solid object, and then I click group again. And that should remove the base. There we go. And yep, looks good. Now notice he's a little bit, he's kind of floating above the plane. That's easy to fix. This little black cone right here above, that raises and lowers an object like this. And if you'll notice right below his feet, you'll see a little measurement that tells you how high above or below the work plane is. I just want that to be 0, so I'll lower it down until it hits 0, right? Come on, right there. Boom, 0. All right, so he's resting on the plane. Perfect. Now, what do I need to do next? Easy. I need to rotate him so he's lying on this flat part. So let's click him again, and you'll notice there's some arrows right here. Here's one. These allow you to rotate objects. I'm going to click on this one, which is going to rotate him this way. I rotate him 90 degrees. I'm not done yet. I need to rotate him 90 so he's facing this way. I'm going to turn him this way. And then I'm going to drag him over and put him on top of the lid. But again, if I look sideways here, you can see he's floating. So I still need to lower him down a little bit. So I click that black cone again, and I lower him until he merges with the lid right there. You can go a little bit beneath it just to make sure it's a good merge. And let's see. Yep, he's merged. Now you'll notice he's not very big. It kind of looks a little weird. He's very small and the lid's kind of big. What I'm going to do is hold the shift key down and click on these corner boxes, and that will allow you to grow or shrink an object proportionally. The height, the width, and the length will all grow proportionally. So I'm just going to drag it here, make him a little larger. I let go of the shift key and then drag him back on. And I can visually look and try to center him, but there's an easier way to do this if you really want to get perfect. Draw a box around the two objects you want to sort of center. You click this button right here called Align. And you notice these little black buttons, they'll allow you to align like along a left edge, a right edge, or a center line. I want to do along the center here. So if I click that, they both line up. The lid and the figure are sharing a line right down their middle. And then of course this one will do it the lengthwise or the widthwise, depending on how you're looking at it. So this thing is centered. Now if you look at it from above, it kind of maybe looks a little awkward because this figure has a hammer, so his head is a little further to the left so there's a bigger gap here than here. If you want to fix that, you just click it, and you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard to give small nudges. I might just nudge it 1 or 2 times, and there is the elf knight on the lid. Now next I'm going to show you how to add some embellishments to the lid as well as the sides of the cardboard box. I think the lid looks a little plain, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here under basic shapes, and I'm going to go down here to symbols, and there's a diamond. Here it is, this little diamond. I'm going to bring it out here. Now obviously it's really big, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the shift key down, And I'm going to drag it down a little bit, make it small, and I'm going to place it in here. Let me look and see. Yeah, it's not coming out of the bottom, I hope. Let's look under. Nope, not coming out. So there's a little, diamond. I can move it with my arrow keys and sort of try to put it where I want it. That looks good. Copy and paste works in Tinkercad. I'm doing a Command C and then a Command V to paste a copy, and I just drag it over here. I'll do another Command V to paste another one. I'll put it up here, and one more, and I'll take this one and put it over here. Now, there are ways to mirror the spacing, but I'm just gonna do this by visual. That one looks pretty good. Not unhappy with it. This one needs to be moved this way a little bit. I'm using the arrow keys again to do this, and let's see. That looks pretty good. Down here, these are too far from the bottom edge, so I'll move them down just a hair, and that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Again, you can go crazy with trying to get everything perfect, but sometimes for something like this, you just want a little embellishment that'll add a little flavor to it. I could put something in here, but I think that's good enough. But I tell you what, I am going to keep these diamonds in mind. Obviously, it would be nice if they would match something on the side. So for the sides of my cardboard box, let me see, what do I want to do here? Let me go back to the basic shapes, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a half sphere. I'm going to pull it out here, and instead of using, I'm not going to hold the shift key down. I'm going to use these, and I'm going to morph this thing a little bit. I'm going to drag it here. Let me put it here in front. Okay, I want it a little shorter than that. And I want this to come down a little bit. Basically, I just want this bubble. See that? Sort of like a bubble. It's symmetrical, and I'm gonna glue it on the side right here. Now, one extra embellishment. I'm gonna go over here and grab one of these diamonds. I'm gonna copy it and paste it, and I'm gonna drag it over here. Now, notice it's underneath. It goes into it, so I need to raise it up just a little bit. Oh, not that one. This one. Oh, nope. Undo that. Command Z is your undo key, by the way. What I want to do is select that diamond. There we go. And I want to raise it up just a little bit and then merge it into this. It still needs to raise up just a little bit. Let's see, does that look good? Yep, let me drag it into there. And now it actually may be too high. Yeah, it's too high. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see. You can see the curved edge. I just want this top facet. So I'm going to click the diamond and lower it just a little bit. And now I probably need to center it. So what I'm going to do, oh, that does not look good. I'm going to bring it over here, raise it up just a little bit. There we go, perfect. But it's not centered. So remember, to center, I'm going to select both these objects, come over here to align, and I want to align it here and here. And it looks like I did a pretty good job of it. All right, there is an embellishment. And I'm going to need two of these, so I'm going to select this. I'm going to group it, and I'll just make it yellow so again I can easy to see. I'm going to Command C, Command V. Now I have two of these. I'll put these over near the lid. And those are for the short side of the box. Let's do one for the long side. So once again, I'm going to come over here and do a half sphere. I'm going to drag it this way. Let's see. Don't want to make it too long. Okay, a little shorter. And I'm going to flatten it again. Okay, that looks pretty good. I still have the diamond. This one I might put two diamonds. Let's do that. Let's put a diamond. Actually, that's going to be pretty hard to do. What I'll do is I'll group the diamonds. I'm going to line them up. And notice I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to line the diamonds up on the same grid line, like that. If you'll notice these, I don't know how to describe this, but these lines that go around, when you select something, you get this little box. I'm just lining them up on these grid lines so that I know that they're in line. See that? I'm going to select these two and group them so they're the same thing. Now, when I raise them up and lower them, they'll act as a pair. So I'm going to raise it up a little bit, bring it over here. I'm going to center the large oval and this. This is treated as one object, not two individuals. So when I center, it'll be centering with the distance between them. I'm going to come up here to align. Actually, I've got to select the oval and the diamonds. and I click Align, and I want to center here and here. And if I look from above, yep, but they're floating above, so I need to lower them just a little bit. So I'm going to use that black cone and just lower them down a little bit. That's too far. That's just right. All right, there's an embellishment. So I'm going to group those together. I'm going to make a copy, Command C, Command V. I've got 2 of them. And so what I'll do is I'll drag this one over here, and I'm going to delete this box as I no longer need it. I could have rotated these and actually placed them on the box just so I could see what it looks like. As a matter of fact, I'll do that for you. Let me zoom in just a hair here. I'll do the side one. So I take this, I drag it over. I want to rotate it 90 degrees this way. Oop, not that way. I want this one 90 degrees. Nope, other way, 90. And then I can just put it, obviously I'll need to raise it a little bit. Let's see, right here, I'll raise it. I'll just push it in. Oh, there we go. So that's kind of what it's going to look like right there when it's glued onto the box. Actually, I got to push it way back in there. There we go. There we go. And so you can kind of imagine what it'll look like on the side here, and then of course the lid. And you don't have to do this. If you don't have a 3D printer, you could easily cut something like this out of cardboard and glue it on there. The basic idea is you just want something that's going to give the paint some shadowing and shading when you get to the painting phase of it. But I thought these might look all right. So again, that's how you do it. I need to rotate this back because the work plane is, this is like the plane or the work area of the 3D printer. So if I want to print things flat, I need to rotate them with respect to this work plane, and I'm going to lower it again down to 0 so it's on the plane. There we go, right there. And there we go. So I want to print this batch of figures minus this, so I'll click that and delete it. Now some 3D printing will orient things on its own. My software, I need to put these things where I want to do it, so I'm just going to group them and drag them around. What I'm trying to do is basically the work area of my 3D printer can print anything that's about 6 inches by 6 inches by 8 inches. So these are inches, so here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this definitely fits within the 6-inch work area. So I've just grouped these things together because I'm going to batch print them all at once. Now, I'm almost done. I've got my figure, I've got the diamonds, my side embellishments. I'm very happy with this. The only thing I want to do now is I need to export this as an STL file again for my 3D printer to use. And to do that, I come here to Export. I choose STL. And you can see it's preparing the model, and it's going to ask me a couple more things, I believe. Let's just give it a minute to think. There we go. It's asking where I want to save the file, so I'll just save it to my computer. There we go. So I have an STL file that contains these files. And now it's time to go to my 3D printer and print these objects out. And now it's time to print. So here is the Tomb Cover Elf STL file. I'm going to double click it. And this is going to open up in an application called Repetier. Now there are different applications that can do what I'm going to be doing with this. Some of them come free with different 3D printers. I just prefer Repetier. And as you can see, here are the objects that I want to print, and they're within the printable area of my 3D printer. So the first thing I want to do is I want to click Connect to connect to my printer, and it's going to say Connection Opened. The other thing I want to do while I'm talking to you, I want to go ahead and get the heat going on. The 3D printer, heats up plastic and melts it. So I want to go ahead and start getting that heater going so that the plastic's melting and getting ready to print. I'm going to go back to the object placement. Now keep in mind, you don't need to know all this stuff, and if you do have a 3D printer, you probably already know how to use your own software. But if you are going to get a 3D printer, I highly recommend Repetier. I really like it. And there are tutorials and some documentation that come with it that will answer all your questions. So what I want to do first is I need to slice these things. And this is a function of the software. It's built in. It's called Slicer. I'm going to click it. And basically what it's going to do is cut these objects into a bunch of horizontal layers, and that's how the 3D printer works. It prints layer 1, then it prints layer 2 on top of layer 1, then it prints layer 3 on top of layer 2, and so on and so on, and it builds up these objects in 3D. So it doesn't take long for small items. If you have a real tall object, it can take a really long time for the slicing application, but we're done. So right now, all we're doing is we're waiting on the temperature to get up to 200. As a matter of fact, I know I prefer to print at 205, so I'm going to get the printer up to 205. Depending on the color filament or color plastic you use, every one of them seems to be a little finicky. They all seem to have a different best temperature to set, and I've just learned that the mutant green that I'm going to be using, it likes the 205. So I'm setting that, and as soon as the temperature reaches 200 or 205, I'm going to click this run button, and then I'm going to give you some video that will show you the printer in action. Okay, so what you're watching here is just a time lapse of my 3D printer, and right now it's basically printing a brim around the five major parts. And in just a second, you're going to see there it goes. It's filling in the last piece way in the back. Now it's going to fill in the larger piece. Jumps ahead a little here, and you can see it's kind of hard to see at the time lapse. I apologize, but this is really boring to do in real time. You would not want to watch 45 minutes of 3D printing, trust me. So you can see that it's getting it done. It's filling in the layers. And pretty soon here you're going to see that it's going to start drawing the character's shape. And let's see, there it is. You can see the honeycomb that fills in. These are not solid printed parts, or at least not all of them are. The honeycomb sort of gives it strength, but it saves on plastic. And it's going, and eventually what happens is as the time lapse continues, you'll see that the four smaller pieces, they'll start getting more rounded near the top, right there. And then the smaller pieces are almost done, and now it's going to fill in the last of the medium-sized pieces, and then it just tackles the main piece. And when the main piece is finished, you'll see the print nozzle move away from it, and at that point I can remove the plastic pieces, and the print job is done. And that's it. Here is the top lid to the tomb. You can see that right here, and you can see it's very thin. You can actually see the figure through it. See the honeycomb pattern in there. It's very thin, hollow in there. Here are the two larger pieces. You can see the two little knobs, diamonds on the things there, and then of course the little ones right here. So if you watched the video prior to this one, you saw me take all these and build the small little tomb, sarcophagus. You can call it what you like. I am by no means a 3D printer expert. I'm not a CAD expert. I've just spent a lot of time playing with it and learning a little here and there. But if you have any questions about what you've seen, please post in the comments, and I will do my absolute best to answer them or put you in a direction where you might be able to find the answer. But this is what I enjoy. I like making terrain, but where possible, I try to use my 3D printer and my CAD skills, the limited CAD skills I have, to do things. Now, do keep in mind that this I didn't do. So I could have, maybe. It would have taken me a really long time. A lot of times it's just easier to go to Thingiverse and just find something you like and use it. But in the future videos, you'll get to see some of me doing some Tinkercad work and creating something unique and original. But I hope you liked it. I hope this showed you how 3D printing works and how CAD kind of works with our hobby. And maybe you've learned enough to go out to Thingiverse, download some files, open up Tinkercad, and make something of your own. So again, if you have any questions, post them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to take a stab at them. See you next time.